So as we just told you, markets don't seem to be too concerned today about what's going on inside the Beltway. The Dow up more than 250 points on the close, and reports that the U.S. and China are making some progress on trade talks, though not enough quite yet to clinch a deal. The talks will now go on till Wednesday. The president bullishly tweeting out, quote, talks with China going very well. Now, Trump and the market seem optimistic about a deal. Should we be as well? What do you think, gang?
I wish we should be. The president has been tweeting out that talks have been going well for some time. I don't think we're any closer than we were 2 months ago. And I'll tell you why. China came out a couple days ago and says, we are going to be sincere in our negotiations. Anytime you have to say you're going to be sincere means there's a problem with insincerity in your past. I don't think China's sincere about this. I think what is positive about China is, say, the Tesla car manufacturing plant, 100% owned by Tesla. That's how you, one of the ways that you get away around the theft of intellectual property in China. I think China might liberalize their markets in that respect. I just don't think they're going to give in to the United States because they see it as the imperial bully. And I think they painted themselves in a corner that they can't give in. And I am not very optimistic. I wish that these trade talks would work. I wish they'd be fruitful. I don't think they will be.
I think we were really doing well early on in this thing, and I'm looking at how their stock market was doing. But then when we started to fall, too, I think it was starting to get a little ugly. And again, I think we have the stronger economy. We buy more stuff. We're in a stronger position than China. But ultimately, I worry about our will through a recession, and I also worry about our delivery, like what we really want to get out of this. And without a very specific plan, I think we're probably at best going to get some lower tariffs than there were before this all started, hopefully. And they're going to commit to buy more stuff, and they probably will buy a little more stuff, but that might be all we get.
So, you know, what I find to be interesting is that President Xi Jinping sent a very high up in terms of optics. That was very, very telling. So I think that the past few days have actually shown some progress. We have to bear in mind that the Chinese economy is not doing well at all. We've got retail sales in China at a 15-year low at this point, and the Chinese export monster is really suffering under these tariffs. And if that was the original intent of President Trump, he's certainly succeeding on that front. But China really does need to make some kind of a deal. The question is, will they concede enough to satisfy Lighthizer? And I just don't know.
Look, on this, you know, there is a lot of mutual pain on this, and you guys have talked about whether or not we're willing to undergo that kind of pain in order to try to extract a level of concessions about intellectual property and tariff barriers and sort of hidden barriers to trade or not. And 18 years, 20 years of intertwining these two economies, you would have had to do a much better job if you're the White House in convincing the American public that you're in for, what, 24 months of lower economic growth, shrunken profits, as well as some massive kind of reinvestment, not just paying the soybean farmers, but some real substantial bolstering up the domestic market, and none of that was in place. So
I got to be a little optimistic, though. I mean, we had Wilbur Ross, who's about as hardline as you can get. I guess Navarro might be a little more so, but not much. And he said that yesterday, he said, quote, we will get a deal that we can live with. You guys don't give that any...
No. I mean, we will get a deal that we can live with, because any deal that we get that Trump agrees to is de facto a deal that we will live with. I think what Jonas and John were talking about is it's not going to be the deal of our dreams, and that was probably unrealistic in the first place, right?
Right.
But it's going to fall way short of whatever the purpose of these tariffs were in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem is go ahead, John.
I'm sorry, Jonas. For China to actually say that, to give in to the theft of intellectual property and change that, they first have to admit they were stealing intellectual property. They're not going to admit that. They have said that over and over. So that's not in the cards. Changing the property ownership, the percentage structure, is one way to get around it. But that's not enough probably to assuage the United States negotiators. We are doing damage to the world's second biggest economy right now. This is bad for the globe, for global trade, for our trade, for everything. The further this thing goes on, we need to find a way to get an off-ramp, declare victory, as was just said, and get out of this thing and let the economy go on.
Yeah, I think if we could have started this like 20, if the president was the president 20 years ago, before they succeeded in so many initiatives in their country and got so far ahead that it's hard to take them on now. At this point, it's difficult to really win an economic war with China. They're intertwined in everyone's economy. They've already developed a lot of industries that wouldn't have developed if they weren't ripping off stuff or state supporting stuff or financing it with them. And it's hard to, you can't undo all that just with a trade war now. So there's only going to be a limited amount you can get anyway, which again is something to achieve. And I think somebody needed to stand up to them, or maybe in 20 more years it would have been worse. But I think we'll take what we can get at this point.
Well, but taking what we can get might be all we can get at this point. We have to bear in mind that the third largest exporting nation in the world after China and the United States is Germany. We got really messy industrial production figures out of Germany early this morning, and it looks like they're heading into a recession. That is the last thing that we need on our hands, is for China to be in a de facto recession, and at the same time for Germany to be sliding into recession, which would take Europe down with it just when the European Central Bank is pulling the plug on its own liquidity measures.
We sell a lot of stuff to Germany, and China